This is the first meeting I've ever been to where everybody actually moves down toward the front. This is great. Welcome. It's nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. We've worked hard and long, and I hope we've done a good job. And you all will be the ones to tell us that. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening. And before I do that, our speaker this evening, Gail, is also our web sister. And could I have a show of hands for anyone here who has visited the website? Wow. And again, could I have a show of hands for anyone who was able to get their registration form through the website this year? Wow. Awesome. This is the first year that we actually put anything other than when the conference was being held and that type of information on the website. And it's nice. We had, of the 400 women that are here or are registered, over 200 of them are first-time attendees to this conference. And I think Gail's work on the website had a lot to do with that. Gail hails from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I believe. And last month, Gail celebrated 22 years of sobriety. And not to mention all the work she's done on the website and put up with all of our, Gail, we need this on the website like yesterday. We did that to her like for the past 6 months. While she was trying to move and redo her house. And last but not least, definitely not least, Gail is the designer of the logo for this conference, which I think we all absolutely love. Without further ado, I will turn things over to Gail. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Gail. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, and for all of you who were here in 2001 and heard me Sunday morning, and all of you who live on the seacoast who hear me all the time, you can go watch TV in your room now. Or you can mouth along with me as I'm speaking and let me know if I change anything abruptly. Could I get a little closer? I'm really loud. Okay. All right, now I can't move. Okay, thanks. And now I'll be forever on disc. So, okay. I was going to start off with this long, meandering story and say, I really hate drunkalogs and wait for everybody to freak out. But I love drunkalogs, man. So you're going to hear mine. So if you have seatbelts, put them on. No, I'm kidding. I grew up in New York. Long Island, though, so it was barely New York. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And the town I grew up in was really small. Like there were, potato and cow farms. It was kind of out east on Long Island, and it was really quiet growing up. And it probably would have been like an idyllic lifestyle, if my mom hadn't been a big drunk. And I don't know if she was an alcoholic, but woo, the lady liked to drink. So first my sister was born. She's 16 months older than me, not quite Irish twins, but close. And then And then there was me. And then I have a sister who's 3 years younger than me. And then I have another sister who's 11 years younger than me. So she like grew up in a whole different family almost, you know what I mean? By then my parents were like wrung out and let her do whatever the hell she wanted. So my oldest sister was perfect. She was practically perfect in every way, her and Mary Poppins. And she was cute and like 5'1¼ tall, and just like she had boyfriends from like 5th grade, and so that was her. And she got straight A's, and she worked really hard and was really quiet and listened, and yeah. So then there was me. When I was in my late, when I was like 10 or 11, the Addams Family was on, and people used to call me Lurch. And I wasn't even all that tall, but I was just like all on knees and elbows, and my ears stuck out, and I was really skinny, and I had frizzy hair, and yeah, so that was great. So anyway, so I was pretty young. And I used to just haul around the house, I guess. This is all hearsay and innuendo from my parents. But I used to just run full tilt into like walls and furniture and stuff. And my parents at one point said, that's weird. So they took me to the doctor because they said, this kid, just runs like 100 miles an hour into furniture. And the doctor said, oh, yeah, she doesn't have a central nervous system problem. She just can't see. So from the time I was like 3 or 4 years old, I had those really, really thick glasses. Nice. And then I inherited my mother's small mouth and my father's bathroom tile teeth. So my front teeth, I swear to God, they stuck out like this, right? And freckles and frizzy hair, yeah, it was great. So, and I went to Catholic school. Yeah, just throw that last shovel of dirt on the coffin there. So, no, I didn't hang around with the cool kids. No, hard to believe. And for whatever reason, my mom, I was just like a maniac. I'm sure if I was a kid now, they would have me like medicated to my eyeballs. You know what I mean? But, in the old days, if you acted like that, they just used to beat you, So it's like, ow! And, you don't really learn anything. You just learn to duck. And so anyway, from a pretty early age, I don't know how old I was, but for as long as I can remember, living in my house was vicious. When I was older and I'd gotten to one of my, car accidents, oops, I had to go to the hospital because I'd gone through a windshield, and so the doctor did a skull x-ray on me. And he was a very young doctor. He was cute. I think I was like 20. And he comes back in, and had that very concerned doctor look, And so I was like, what? I was drunk, and I wanted to get out of there, and my head hurt. And he said, I found quite a number of really old skull fractures that have been healed over on your head. Were you a victim of child abuse? And I was like, can I go? You know what I mean? Like, so that's, I had like broken bones and broken collarbones, and it was rough growing up in my house. And my sisters used to stand in the corner. The living room was, I don't know why, it was where my mother would usually corral me. I'd be running through the house, and she'd get me cornered in the living room, come after me with something, And my two sisters would stand there or sit on the couch and cry and hold each other and say, just cry. If you cry, she'll stop hitting you. And there I was. Do you know what I mean? Like, hello. So, I don't know if I had alcoholism or mental illness from a very early age, But I had something going on, I was pretty stubborn. And so, I went to Catholic school, and I was a very angry child. I was a very angry child. Not really surprising, but maybe without the beatings I would have been a little less angry, but I don't really know. And I never told anyone. People in schools would say, "What happened to your arm?" And I would say, "Oh, I fell." Like the nurses in the emergency room would be, "Gail, what are you doing back again?" "I fell off my bicycle." Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'd ever said anything to anyone, like, they would have helped me. But, I don't know. That's just not what you did, in 1960. I don't know. And so I started going to Catholic school. And I had to ride on the kids with all my friends on the public school buses because we all took the same buses in my uniform. And people started making fun of me. And my way of stopping people from making fun of me would be when I got to the bus stop the next day, if the kids started making fun of me, I would beat the living crap out of them. And then they didn't make fun of me anymore, at least to my face. And I didn't care if I didn't hear it, And I always thought that I got really violent when I was drinking. I always kind of thought that that waited to happen until I, was getting loaded mostly all the time and doing, pounds of drugs. But my sister reminded me. When I was about 9 years old, I used to play with all the boys in the block because, I don't know, girls annoy me. And present company excluded. But we were playing baseball on this, like field near somebody's house. And it was like me and 3 of my friends. They're all boys about my age, maybe a little older. And I was pitching. And these 2 teenagers came down the hill, and I pitched to the kid that was at bat, and the one kid grabbed the ball, and then they grabbed the bat from the kid who was at bat, and they were like, "What's the matter? You want, like that lovely thing that kids do." And the kid was like, "Leave me alone, give me my ball back." And I got so mad. My sister and her friends were like sitting on a stoop somewhere nearby. I got so mad that I started pegging rocks at the 2 guys. And I was like, I had a good arm, so I had like deadly accuracy. And they were like, "What's the matter?" "Ow!" Then an ow! And then ow! And then the one kid got hit in the head and started to bleed. And the kid they were picking on looked up at them and went, "She's not going to stop throwing those rocks." And they dropped the ball in the bat and left. And I have to say that those little boys didn't really give me any points for, like, defending them from the teenagers, because, that wasn't the way things were done back then. So I hated that. And, and from as far back as I can remember, am I bright red? Because I feel like I'm competing with this thing. I'm very nervous. From a very early age, I was always restless, irritable, and discontented. So, like I said, I don't know if it had anything to do with, living with the Cleavers or that kind, hello, or if it was, alcoholism, from an early age. I don't know. But all I know is that got out of Catholic school, went to public school. This is going to change my life, man. I'm in public school. And no social skills. In Catholic school, you're all geeks. Everybody's nerdy wearing a uniform. Yes, sister. You know what I mean? So, like, the coolest kid in Catholic school is still pretty sad. So, So then I was in public school, and I would wear like the same clothes for like 3 days in a row, you know what I mean? And I was basically raised by Wolverine, so nobody noticed. Like, nice pants. How many days is that? Take them off, stinky, you know what I mean? Like the thing you might say to a child if you were paying any attention, but not so much. So it's hard to believe, but I wasn't wildly popular. Like I got there and I was like, I don't think I ever said, it's a clean slate, now I'm going to be cool and make new friends, But like I got there and everybody was like, Catholic school kid, we already have enough friends. Go sit by yourself at lunchtime, And so that's what I did for a little while. And then I was in a 9th grade algebra class and the teacher explained something. And then he explained it again. And then he explained it in a slightly different manner. And by then I was losing it, So I was like, all right, already, we get it. And then everyone looked at me and I still do that sometimes. I'm like, oh, did I say that out loud, Not so much with the social filter still after 22 years of sobriety. But he looked at me and he said, Miss Morrissey, because, that's my maiden name, Morrissey. Miss Morrissey, would you like to go to the office or something like that? And I'm coming from Catholic school where if you did anything bad, you either got your knuckles bloodied by a ruler the size of, a 2x4, or the nun would sneak up behind you and catch you in the back of the head with a window pole, those things that they used to open the windows. So he's like, Miss Marcy, and I'm like, And then I don't know if it actually made a sound, but that was the moment I realized, oh my God, they're not allowed to hit you here. And so I went, what are you going to do? Give me a detention? Like that. And he was like, go down to the office. And I was like, fine, So I walked out of the classroom, and an hour later at lunch, everybody was like, come sit with us, You're an asshole to the teachers. You're awesome, Yeah. So my fresh mouth had finally gotten me some fame and fortune. And if I'd gotten D's and F's and mouthed off like that, I would have got you're going to go learn how to rebuild bus engines. You know what I mean? They would have sent me to BOCES. But because I got straight A's, mostly out of fear, because even when I got straight A's, I still got beaten. So, I didn't want to, drag that out. I didn't want to see what would happen if I didn't. They send you to the counselor's office. Now, I am a kid who is being systematically beaten into unconsciousness on a weekly basis at home. I get sent to a counselor who would probably, want to hear this. And what do? I don't tell him any of that, and I make stuff up. Well, yeah, I'm like, oh, really? And I'm like, in my head, I'm in 9th grade, and this guy's in his 30s. And in my head, I'm like, what a chump, And I'm getting out of all kinds of trouble because I have problems, which I really did, but I didn't tell him any of the real ones. I don't even remember the stuff I made up, but it was stupid. And I would lie, too, to all the kids in the school, make up stories like, what'd you do last weekend? Well, last weekend, I, rode across the Snake River Canyon with Evel Knievel. Yeah, it's just something we like to do, And my sister was in the same school in the next grade up. And they would go, did Gail really ride over the Snake River Canyon with Evel Knievel? And my sister would say, no. So I would always get caught. But luckily I was entertaining enough that people didn't mind, I guess. Or I would say to people, would say, why'd you say that? I said, it was a better story. And when you're in junior high, people are like, okay, you know what I mean? Later on, when you're working for a company, they don't really want to know that you made a lot of that stuff up. So that bit me in the butt later on. But so anyway, look at this. I've been talking for an hour and I'm still in junior high. Isn't that pathetic? Hold on, let me just pour some ice down the back of my dress. Okay, so where am I? I'm at junior high. Okay, moving right along. So I go to high school. I ran track. I did every after-school activity I could possibly think of to never go home. And I did good in school. And National Honor Society. And I got in New York they have this test. I forget what it's called, but you can get I got a 1500, and the most you can get is a 1600. So I had all these scholarship offers, but I hated school. I mean, knowing what I know now, I probably have one of those alphabetical disorders, with a lot of ADH, whatever, blah. But I didn't know that then. So I would sit in class and be tap 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 tap. Ooh, bird. You know what I mean? I was just who's that walking by the classroom? It's like a dog. You're look at me, look. Sorry, I dropped this earlier, and I'm anal retentive, and it was bothering me. So all the guidance counselors, they're like, where do you want to go to college? And my parents are like, you should go to college. And everybody's like, you should go to college. And I'm like, I hate school. And they're like, yeah, but no, you should go. No, I hate school. So I got out of high school. When I was in the beginning of my senior year, I moved out of my parents' house because when I was 14, I'm all over the place. Bong, bing, 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 bing. My brain is like a BB in a shoebox. Okay. When I was 14, my mother came into my room and was going to beat the crap out of me because I had made my bed or something. My house that I lived in, my mother was not a cleaner. My mother would drink beer and do crossword puzzles. So she came in and said, your bed wasn't made this morning. And she came at me, and I was afraid she was going to shove me out a window, which it was kind of a long fall, and with the glass and everything, I really wasn't excited about where that was going. So I punched her in the face. Didn't mean to. But when she was laying on the floor, I went, I don't think I'm going to catch any beatings anymore. And she started cringing, and her nose was bleeding. And she was like, what did you do? What did you do? And I was like a serial killer. I looked her dead in the eye, and I said, completely deadpan, if you ever touch me again, I will kill you. And scary as that was to believe, my mother never hit me again after that. As a matter of fact, when I'd come home from school, she'd go in her room and close the door. It was awesome. But I was really smart, and my parents were stupid, so I got myself emancipated when I was 16 and moved out of my parents' house into my own apartment because I was working full-time and finishing high school. What? Does that sound like fun to anybody? It sucked. But whatever, it made perfect sense at the time. And I pretty much was the only high school senior in my high school with their own apartment, driver's license, car, and, I had a cool place to live. I was eating, store-brand peanut butter on day-old bread, mostly, 2 meals a day. But, I was cool. And I hung out with all the kids in the sports teams because, and I started drinking when I was 15. I left that out, too, didn't I? Yeah. So my sister, like I said, she was beautiful and popular, and she always had boyfriends, and I was kind of a motorhead, and I used to buy, used, we used to call them basket cases. It was mostly somebody at some point took apart a mini bike, and then they were like, wow, that's complicated, and then they would sell me all the crap for cheap money, and I'd put it together, and I'd sell it and make some money, and I always worked, and I always, since I'm 14, I always worked because I needed money because I thought stuff would make me feel better, and if I had money, then I had stuff, and if I had stuff, I was probably as good as you, even though I knew I wasn't as good as you, but I look cool, so that'll have to do. And so my sister had this one boyfriend who I loved because he was a complete greaser and motorhead, and so he was rebuilding a really good car, and I used to whine and snivel and make my sister feel guilty and make me take her, go with her. I'd say, where are you going? And she would go, Vinny's picking me up and we're going to go and hang out at Tony's house and do this, that, and the other thing. And I went, oh, that sounds like fun. And she would like go, all right, you can come. And I'd go, wee, and then I'd come. And so I got assigned the job to rebuild the carburetor of this car. I think it was a 442. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. 67. It was a good car. And so one of the guys said, hey, kid, because I was right in the engine with everybody, like, what about this? Because I had, like, little monkey hands. And so these were all, like, big guys. They were almost like men, but they were still in high school. And I could get my, like, little monkey arm in places where they couldn't reach. And because of my nervous energy, I was like the human tendon. So I was really strong, even though I was like a stick, So they said, well, we need to rebuild this carburetor. And I was like, I'll do it. So they gave me the carburetor rebuild kit and the carburetor. And I had like 4 days to build this carburetor. And I must have put it together and took it apart like 5 times and had to go buy new things because the gasket, once you use it, you can't use it again. So, and I was like, I never did this before. I'm not going to do it right, So I was like a heaving wreck for like 4 days. And so then I get there and they're like, you got the carburetor? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I toss it at the guy, And inside I'm going, oh, God, please let it work. Oh, God, please let it work. Oh, God, please let it work. That like panic we have and outside we're like, hey. And I call that where's my keys mental state. You know what I mean? Like when you have to be somewhere and you're already late, you can't find your keys. And where's my keys? And you look in the couch and you look at the person, you look in your pockets and where's my keys? And, and then you realize you have them in your hand, but you spend like 10 minutes like working yourself into almost having a stroke, That was kind of how my life was, most of my life, actually. And so they put the carburetor in the car, and then they prime it. And the whole time, I'm like, but I'm fine, and the car starts, and everybody's like, yeah, And so one of the guys says, hey, kid, you want a beer? And I was like, no, I'm trying to cut down, What I didn't tell them was that because of my home life, when I would walk in the house and I would smell beer, I would start to panic. It was like a Pavlovian psychological response, like you ring the bell and the dog drools. I would smell beer and I'd start to freak out, So, and I knew that drinking was bad for you. If nothing else in my house, I had a really good bad example. Like you drink, bad things happen. So I was like, no. And then this is how much peer pressure it took. Don't you want to be one of the guys? That's what he said. And like, that's all I wanted. I was like, oh my God, you have no idea how much I just want to be like everybody else instead of from planet X. I was like crushing. So I'm like, all right, give me that. And it was a 16-ounce Schmitz in the bottle. Repulsive. So I cracked it open, and I'd seen it in a movie or something where you chug the whole beer. I'm all about the impressing people with my coolness. And I was about as tall as I am now. I weighed about 87 pounds. I had frizzy, red-brown hair that I would never brush, so in the back it was like nice and matted. I had braces, glasses that came to points because those were the cheap ones they had at the eye doctor, and like they weren't in style or anything, okay? And I used to wear my sister's clothes, and I was now 5'7", and she was 5 feet and half an inch. I used to get her hand-me-downs. So all my T-shirts, you know what I mean? It was pathetic. So anyway, so I grabbed the beer and I chug it, and then, it was bad. I burped for like 5 minutes, and I had like foam coming out my nose. I swear my eyes were burning. I think some beer came out my tear ducts. And we were in like a corrugated carport that was like cinder blocks on the side and then a corrugated tin roof. So it was like, wah, yeah. And all the guys went, all right, And my sister and her friends were over in the other corner talking about whatever it is that high school girls talking about. I didn't know then. I still don't know. And they all went, ew. And it tasted gross, and I felt terrible, and I was so embarrassed. I burped all over the engine, and And I just wanted to cry, and I didn't want to cry, and I just wanted to walk into the woods, and in like 5 minutes, I was like, you got another one of those? I mean, seriously. I went from being like geek to like, I was like a game show host. I was like, hey, how you doing, you know? Come over here, handsome, you know what I mean? Like, I had like 3 beers. I have no memory of the rest of the day. My sister was like, we need to get her home. I woke up the next day and I was like, oh my God, now I know why people get loaded, you know? And from that day until I got sober when I was 30, I did not drink every single day. But mostly. And if I wasn't drinking, I was thinking about it. And if I wasn't thinking about drinking, I was doing some other kind of chemical entertainment, you know? So, tick, 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 tick. So anyway, I'm hanging around with a bunch of meatballs in New York, and we're stealing auto parts at night, repainting them and selling them to their previous owners like a couple of days later. And we just thought we were just the cat's ass, you know what I mean? Like, we were so slick, you know, and we used to wear leather jackets and tight pants, and we were like, yeah, your ass is mine, you know, and like, I've been hit in the head with like lengths of chain and pieces of pipe. Do you know what I mean? Like, and those are the people that I was like, ooh, those are the people I want to hang around with, you know what I mean? Like, these are choices that I made. So I'm hanging around with these meatballs, and a guy I know that I was pretty sure was doing time upstate New York in prison because I hadn't seen him for a while, he comes to hang around our motley crew, and he looked at me and he goes, kid, what are you doing hanging around with these melon heads, you know? And I was like, what are you talking about? These guys are my friends, blah, blah, blah. You know, whoever I hung out with, that's what I talked like. So most of these guys were Italian, so that's how I talked, you know? I'm sure if I hung around with Swedish people, I would be like, you're the hurt, you know? I hang around with bikers, I talk bikers. I hang around with engineers, I'm sure I'm whipping out my slide rule, you know? So he said, you know, these guys are all stupid. Like, you're not stupid. And I was like, you know, how dare you call me not stupid? And so he asked me, he had gotten a job through his uncle in the printing union in New York, and he asked me if I wanted to get a job as an apprentice in the printing union. And I'm like, I could probably make enough money to eat something besides peanut butter and day-old bread. That was pretty much like and I could drink. So I got a job in the printing union, and I really liked it. And I almost stopped drinking. It was right around that time, too, I started having seizures all the time. And so they put me in the hospital, and, you know, they didn't have MRIs or CAT scans in those days. Like, they took an X-ray of your head. And then they went, you could have a tumor. We don't really know. If it gets any worse, maybe we'll go in with a drill and look. And I was like, yeah, I'm reading like Death Be Not Proud, you know. I'm like, oh, I have a tumor. This is great. I'm getting so much attention, you know. Not at all sad. And but what it was is I was drinking a lot. And I have alcoholic epilepsy. And so whenever I drink or do narcotics, I have about a 48-hour window before I need to start drinking or doing more narcotics. And if I don't, then I start having seizures. It's really not very attractive. So they just put me on like pounds of medication. They were like, well, try this, and maybe that'll work. And if it doesn't work, if you still have seizures, try this. And then so I basically, you know, would come home with like, you know, these drink bottles full of pills. And when I was shaky, I would take them because they helped out. You know, we used to call drugs like that dry martinis because they did the same thing as a drink, but they weren't actually wet. And so yeah, I did that. I lost my driver's license because I was having seizures, and that kind of wrecked my my whole idea of being a motorhead biker chick with no wheels. That was nice, pathetic, and because I don't ride on the back. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was like my whole thing. I was just kind of crackpot. And so I had like boyfriends for like 15 minutes. And I used to get into bar fights with everybody. I mean, I was just like a maniac. And but I started working in the union, and I stopped drinking, but I started working like 85 hours a week. So, and then as soon as I got my union card, like 2 years later, I stopped having seizures. I got my driver's license back. Everything's swell. I better start drinking again. And then I started drinking again and hit the skids for a while. Lost my license again, and then a guy picked me up hitchhiking. I'll call him Bruce because that's his name. And I'm hitchhiking. I don't know who's here from New York, but the Long Island Expressway was what I used to hitchhike on because I lived in Smithtown, Long Island, and I worked in Melville. So that's kind of far to not have wheels, and I'm not taking the train. It's a perfectly, sensible mode of transportation, but I had a problem. And I would always carry a helmet with me in case somebody on a motorcycle wanted to give me a ride. Yeah, so I was getting a lot of ride from people who were normal, not. And what's that in her hand? I don't know, I'm not stopping. Guys on Harleys held together with baling wire would give me a ride. That was pretty much it. And so I'm hitchhiking one day, and this van pulls over, and it's the middle of the day. It's really hot in August, and it doesn't have a front grill on the front, and the headlights are on. I later found out because there was an electrical problem with it, and so if he didn't have the headlights on, the battery would overcharge and bubble over. That's boring. You don't care about that. And then so he pulls over, and I'm like, what is up with this van, And then he reaches over and opens the door, and he goes, "You want to ride?" And I was like, sure, you don't have a machete under that seat, So I look in the van, and there's no seats in the back. It's just full of empty cases of beer and Burger King garbage. And then there's no passenger seat. There's a large tire for your seating convenience. And the door handles are off, and there's 2 vice grips. That's how you get in and out of the car. And I was like, well, I ended up marrying that guy. Either he was in the right place at the right time, or maybe not. So anyway, he was a lot of fun. We used to party a lot. He was a biker. We had a good time. He was always proud of me that I knew how to MIG and TIG weld, and he never ever said to me, how come you never wear a dress? I can remember having a guy say to me, you have good legs. I bet you look good in high-heel shoes. And I looked at him and I went, yeah, if they're so great, why aren't you wearing them? So that was the end of that relationship. But, so anyway, he really liked me, and I really liked him as much as I could like anybody. And for like 2 years, I almost drank like a normal social drinker, I guess. I mean, we got really loaded sometimes, but I was happy or something, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And then, I'm an alcoholic. So, eventually, the way the man chewed his food was enough to make me go out and get loaded. You know what I mean? He would say, well, why don't we do this instead of doing that? And I'd be like, you're always on my case. I'm out of here. You know, right? Such an asshole. I am out of here. So, yeah. So anyway, the last thing, our last days of wedded bliss, I don't know, he came home from work earlier. He'd gotten fired or quit or something like that. He had a cavalier work attitude. And I was having trouble keeping a job at that point because I was drinking a lot and having seizures all the time. And I'd gotten a bottle from a vendor. I was working at a print shop. One of the vendors, they used to come in and like hand everybody bottles of scotch. I hated scotch unless it was all I had. And then... So I had a bottle of scotch in the house for, God, I don't know, months and months and months. And And he was gone. He was at work, and he wasn't going to be home till next morning. And I started drinking the scotch. And he came home, and I was already drinking. And he grabbed the bottle out of my hands and poured it down the sink. And it was all the booze I had in the house. And I'm like in and out, gray outs all the time now, but at this point. But I remember it ended up with I was laying on the floor, and he's big biker, and he's got his arms on my arms to keep me from punching him, and he's got his legs on my legs to keep me from kicking him, and he's crying, and he's saying, "Oh, Gail, please don't go out. Please don't go out. If you go out, I don't know when you're going to," because I was already like MIA for a couple of days now when I was drinking, He's like, "When you go out, I don't know where you are. I'm afraid you're dead. I worry. Please stay home with me. I'll go to the liquor store. I'll get you more booze. Just please don't go out." And I spit in his face to get him off me. And it worked, and he got off me. And I went out. And when I came back, probably a couple of days later, he's gone, And I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to drink, I didn't want to kill people with my alcoholism, but I did, And the end of my drinking, I was living in a marina in the little town I grew up in. None of my family would let me anywhere near their houses because I would steal from them. And I woke up one morning and I couldn't see out of my right eye. And I remember thinking, what a pain in the ass. Something else now I have to deal with. So I go to touch my face, and I have this flap of skin that's hanging from my forehead down onto my cheek. And I was just like, crap. So I push it up so I can see, and I start walking to the closest emergency room. And I get to the emergency room, and, doctors in emergency rooms, they just really love stinky alcoholics, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I walk into the emergency room, and they rush me in, and they take some blood from me, and then they're like, whoop, 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 because I'm almost dead from drugs and alcohol, And the doctor comes in, and they're standing there with the crash cart, when is she going to die so we can rev her back up, And then I started to get cranky, because I hadn't drank for a while, and I walked up this big hill, and I was needing a drink. And so I started, swearing at him, are you going to fix this? What the fuck? So the doctor comes in with this poor little nurse. Oh, this thing. She must have been, barely even a nurse. She was really young and little, and I was, stinky and filthy, and I had this blue mohawk that was all grown, so I had a crew cut on the sides with this blue hair that just laid like this, because I didn't actually have a bathroom to fix it up in, to freak everyone out with my coolness, and so anyway, she's holding the thing, and he can't even give me Novocaine because I'm so loaded. He figured he would just kill me, So he's just stitching up my head, whack, whack, and I'm swearing at him. And he's saying to the nurse, "This is someone in the final stages of alcoholism. Notice the jaundice in the eye. Notice the protruding liver." And he's poking me, and I'm swearing at him, "Stop poking me, asshole," And And so they sew me up, and they wrap a bandage around my head, which I'm sure as soon as it touched me was filthy, And they ooch me out the door, and I'm on my way out, and the lady near the entrance was like, "Gail, Gail," and I'm like, "Oh, how do you know my name?" I told her when I came in, but a little fuzzy on the details at this point in my drinking, My sisters call that the gray years. We'll be talking about a TV show that was in 1983, and I'll be like, "What?" And they're like, "Oh no, early 80s. You weren't watching a lot of TV, So anyway, they stitch up my head, and I leave, and she hands me an AA meeting list on the way out, and I was like, But then, I don't know if it was a day later or like 3 months later, like I said, the whole, not so good at remembering. I went, final stages? I've seen Marcus Welby, MD. That's bad. So I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because basically I was afraid I was going to die. That's the only reason I came to AA. I didn't come because I was in trouble, because I was past being in trouble. Now I was just getting kicked to keep moving from the cops. I was eating out of dumpsters. So yeah, the whole wanting the trouble to stop was like way long gone. I just didn't want to die. So I came to AA, and I couldn't stop drinking. Could not stop drinking. And I was scary and insane. If I walked into a room and there was a couple of people sitting over there and they started laughing, I knew they were laughing at me. So I'd run over and knock somebody off their chair, and then 2 guys would come and grab me by my armpits and drag me outside. And this poor woman who would eventually become my sponsor would come outside, Fran. She was a saint, man. And she would say, Gail, you're not allowed to hit people. If you're going to hit people, we're going to make you sit outside. And if it's raining, you're going to really hate that. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, And people would give me like quarter cups of coffee, and I'd be all incensed, and I'd go and fill the cup up, and then I would just... Everybody'd be wearing it. I shook for like 6 months. My central nervous system was shot. My front teeth were gone, not because I had such an exciting life. I just... in New York, we call it losing a fight with the sidewalk. It means you're so loaded you fall forward and you can't get your hands out fast enough to keep your face from hitting the cement. And I had that. I was great. And so I couldn't stop drinking. And I had a friend that I really respected, actually, because he still carried weapons and had done a lot of prison time. Those are my friends in AA, People with like ties. Ooh, yeah, I'm not talking to you. You're probably a narc. So he told me that I was doomed. Actually, he said, you're screwed. He goes, kid, you're screwed. I was like, thanks for the news flash. And he said, you need to ask a power outside of yourself to remove the obsession. And so I gave him my patented, I went to Catholic school. It's all the man trying to keep us down. I don't know. I had this like 15-minute anti-religion rap about God, it's all voodoo to keep us following rules, man, and he was like, yeah, look at you. He's like, you're doomed. Like, you need something. So I was living in a rooming house then. I'd upgraded from the bench at the marina to the rooming house, and it was really crappy. It was really gross. But it was, not wet when it rained. And so I went up to my room, and I knelt down next to my bed. First, I pulled the shade down, in case anybody was to chimney up a tree outside and see me praying and call, Fox News or something, Actually, it was probably the Daily News, but whatever. And so I knelt down, and I said a prayer. And I know a lot of prayers. I know prayers like I know the Pledge of Allegiance, because I used to have to say them all the time in school when I was quite young, and they're embedded in your brain. But I wasn't going to say any of those prayers, because those are the man's prayers. So I said, and I thought it was crap too. So that helped too. So I said, look, God, I think this is really stupid, but Jerry says I should do this. So can you please remove the obsession to drink from me, because I'm really sick and I keep drinking and I don't even want to drink anymore. And I was getting all upset. And then I was like, okay, you're talking to yourself and you're making yourself cry. Go to bed, So it was like 3 days later when I realized I hadn't thought about drinking and getting high for 3 days. And as near as my sponsor at that time and I can remember, because I was going for a week earlier than September 3rd, 1985, but she wasn't buying it. So she says, if you're not sure, it's not your sobriety date. And I was like, I'm so mature, shut up. So I hadn't had a drink since then. And I always spend so much time in the beginning. And then I get to the end, and then I'm like, and I've been sober 22 years, and it's great. Good night, Ohio, whatever. So, what I've done right in sobriety, I've always had a sponsor. I've always gone to meetings. I've always tried to the best of my ability to work the steps. At first, that was very crappily. But even early in sobriety, when I still had people looking for me, seriously, I made a lot of amends. And my life, the promises came true in my life. And I moved from Long Island to Manhattan, and I got a job at this print shop, and the union and the owner of the print shop liked my work so much that I was the first woman foreman of a major print shop in Manhattan. I was a terrible, terrible boss. I was a very bad boss. I would yell at everybody all the time, and I'd want them to do what I said. God damn it, do it right now. And these are like all grown men who were like 20 years older than me, and they were like, no. Now what are you going to do besides have an aneurysm? And they would laugh at me because my face would get so red. You know? So I worked on that. You know, I got better at that. I got better at asking people, would you do me a favor and do this? Would you please do this? I would never ask anyone else to do something that I wouldn't do. Stuff like that. Stuff that I was too good to do before. And then I fell madly in love. Madly in love. I moved to Brooklyn for a short period of time, and then I moved up to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, because I was madly in love. I was madly in love. He was the love of my life. I would drop dead if anything happened to this relationship. And after I lived up here 2 months, I went, oh, he's kind of a jerk. And I didn't have to say, well, I moved all the way up here, and I know he's going to ask me to marry him, so maybe I should stick around. You know, I was like, get an apartment. And he was like, oh, great, when are we moving? And I'm like, yeah, you're not coming. And he was going to AA, and I was going to AA, and I didn't care. I kept going to AA, and I don't know. I thought I was going to be alone for the rest of my life, and I was fine with that. And I had my Harley Davidson, and I had my friends, some girls, some guys. We used to go on long rides. We would do fun things. It was awesome. I wasn't interested in dating, and then this guy kept bothering me. And he was really cute. But he was like 11 years younger than me, and he wasn't sober very long. And I was like, yeah, Junior, beat it, you know. And he kept calling me and making me mixtapes because, you know, this was in the early 90s, so okay. So you could make someone a mixtape and people wouldn't go, what the hell is this, you know? So, and he would leave me notes, and he would call me and leave messages on my answering machine. Not scary ones, you know. But I had never had anyone, like, I had always been attracted to guys that were, like, you know, radioactive, you know what I mean? So, like, I was like, I gave him my number, and he called me. He must be a stalker, you know? And as one of my sponsors, Mindy, said, I made some crappy choices in my sobriety, too. And as one of my sponsors, Mindy, always says, she's like, the problem is not that the psychopath is attracted to me. The problem is that I give the psychopath my phone number. And invite him to sleep over. No. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, this guy was really nice, and he'd never been in a fight in his whole life. Isn't that cute? That's so cute. And he didn't even know how to change a spark plug. Oh my God, could you just die? So anyway, eventually I gave in, and I went out with him. And we got married in 1995. After dating for 3 years, neither of us was in a rush. We didn't move in together either. And he has a program of recovery, and he works the steps in his life, and he sponsors people, and he goes to meetings, and he has a sponsor. And in 1999, February of 1999, my daughter Grace was born. And I never wanted kids. People would say, don't you want to show them somebody? I'd be like, no. You know, I'd have, like, boyfriends that were kind of getting serious, and they'd be like, what do you think about having kids? I'm like, not interested. And they'd be like, what? I'm like, dude, I don't even have houseplants. Or pets. I'm thinking kids, lot more work. Too self-centered, get it? So that was interesting. But, like, I knew Clark would do at least half. You know what I mean? Like, I just wasn't interested in somebody that I was going to be their mom, and then I had to be the mom of somebody else. Like, I'm too tired, you know? So I had Grace when I was 43, and I'm 52 now, and she's 8, so I'm really tired. But she is tender and sweet and kind and loving. I'll show you all her picture sometime over the weekend. She just got her hair done. It's like a pixie cut all around, except it comes down like this in the front, and it's like fuchsia pink, the long part. Freaking awesome. And she's a nervous kid. She's afraid. She's afraid of a lot of things. Mom, what if there's a fire? Mom, do we ever have earthquakes around here? Now, my first reaction is to go, what are you, freaking stupid? Shut up, go to bed. But what I say is, you know what, honey? We haven't had an earthquake around here in a really long time, especially not in Atlantic Heights. So how about when we say our prayers tonight, we'll close our eyes and we'll ask God to keep us safe. She can talk to me. Mama, someone was mean to me at school the other day. Now, what I want to say is, who was it? And why don't you let Mom take care of that for you? But what I say is, you know, honey, you have a mama and dad that love you, and you come home to us every day, and we have dinner, and a lot of kids don't have that. And a lot of kids are angry. And try not to take it personally, because I bet that kid is mean to everybody. And she's like, they are. And I said, well, you could try this. You don't have to. I said, but every day when you see them, give them a big smile and say hello. Because I bet they don't have a lot of people smiling at them. I bet most people duck. She's like, but I'm scared. And I say, well, then you don't have to do it. But if you want to, you can ask God to help you. Just quiet in your head, and I bet you can do it. And then she'll tell me what's happened. Like, I can never talk to my parents like that. And it's just because of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know? And I don't know. I love you guys, man. You guys saved my life. And the best thing is, like, you know, you're in Alcoholics Anonymous. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're new and you're struggling, find somebody to talk to. That's what I had to do. I had to find somebody. I had to sponsor, and she looked all clean and shiny. And when I was kind of slobby and scary. And when I was doing my 4th step and I was reading her my 5th step, I got to some parts that were really, I was so ashamed of. And I was crying, and she stopped me. And she told me something that she had done that was so disgusting. And I was like, you did that? And she was like, oh yeah. And I went, oh yeah, no problem. I can read the rest of this now. So, you know, if there's a word for it, somebody's done it. If there's a law against it, a lot of people have done it. So whatever, you know. And if you go up to someone and they don't want to talk to you, or they walk away, or they won't give you their phone number, you know, I know there's probably some moms and stuff here, but fuck them, you know. We're not all here because we're all like, you know, the mental health capital of the world, you know. So you probably just remind them of somebody that freaked them out like 18 years ago. And woo, they're not talking to you, you know. Just find somebody else. There's someone here for everybody, you know. There's a, you know. So anyway, I've talked too long, but just welcome to the 19th Annual Northeast Regional Woman to Woman Conference. And I hope you have a good time. And I'm all set. Thanks.